right, what's up, everyone? Are you guys ready for Oklahoma to face off against Maine? And I believe they're the Black Bears this Saturday. Because with the sold-out crowd, Oklahoma has a unique challenge in this game. And I think it's set to pretty much tell where Oklahoma's path is set to go for the rest of the year. This is a get-right game for Oklahoma. And Coop mentioned it perfectly yesterday. The fact that we're sitting here a couple days before this game saying that Oklahoma has to get right against Maine is an indictment on this season. And he said it earlier in the week. If Oklahoma potentially has 3 or 4 out of the 5 wide receivers this season and the offense looks seemingly a little bit better, do you fire Seth Luttrell? And are you in the position that you're in right now? Because I think what we see in the game this week will be dependent on multiple futures of specific guys on this team. And we're going to dive into that today. Before we do it, as always, if you're new to the channel, I want you guys to hit that like, join the discussion. Let me know what you guys think. And guys, 66% of you are not subscribed to the channel. So do me a favor, hit that like, hit the subscribe button. It helps me out, especially with the newborn, helps me buy diapers. And I appreciate it because did not realize how much diapers and formula would cost in the year of our Lord, 2024. But yeah, so if you're heading to the game this weekend, it's going to be an interesting week because not only does Oklahoma potentially have some unique challenges that they need to overcome in this game, but the fans are going to have some unique challenges as well because it's going to be like 60, like mid 60s, like low 70s with rain. So yeah, bring your ponchos, bring your jackets where you get the rain, and yeah, hopefully you can stay dry. But here's where the unique challenges are for Oklahoma. And there's 3 of them, and they're all on the offensive side of the ball that Oklahoma needs to go in here and figure out. Because if you're Oklahoma, you are given a 98.4% chance to beat Maine. Maine only has a 1.6% chance to beat you, which the fact that the ESPN analytics prediction machine is even giving Maine a 1.6% chance to win this game is absolutely asinine to me. That should never happen at the University of Oklahoma. But you get here, it's a 1:30 kickoff, so it's an odd time for Oklahoma to be kicking off there. I think they're like a 34.5-point favorite in this game. No reason why Oklahoma should struggle here. I also don't think there's any reason why Oklahoma should only score 34.5 points in this game. So, like, let's just say 35. No point why Oklahoma should be doing that. They should be putting up at least 60 in this game. And that sounds crazy, but when we get into this, we're going to start with unique challenge number 1. The unique challenge number 1 is Oklahoma needs to be able to run the ball against Maine, right? So I told you at the beginning of the video that there's potentially going to be some storms rolling through Norman, right? You want to be able to run the clock. You want to be able to run the ball well, and that's not something that you have done well this season. So if you're Oklahoma, you need Javonte Barnes. You need Taylor Tatum. I don't know if Gavin Sawchuk's going to play in this game. If he doesn't, you want to see a little bit of Caleb Hicks. You want to see guys like that have a huge impact this week. You want to be able to see them run the ball well. And so I look at it, Javonte Barnes got 104 carries on the season, 374 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's no reason why Javonte Barnes this week can't have 100 yards and at least 2 touchdowns in this game. I think that would be a successful day from Javonte Barnes. An additional successful day would be for Taylor Tatum to have 50 yards or whoever plays running back 2 to have 50 yards. That would be a successful day on the ground because Jackson Arnold would probably have at least 50 as well. Now, kind of diving into the running back situation in Oklahoma, I would really like to see Taylor Tatum take a big chunk of snaps in this game. And I want to see Taylor Tatum hold on to the ball well. He hasn't been able to do that this season. And I think this is just something that Oklahoma fans want to see improvement from him on. Additionally, you want to see Caleb Hicks, right? I think a lot of fans are expecting at this point Caleb Hicks to be a guy that enters the portal. I have no idea if he is going to or not, but he hasn't seen a lot of playing time at Oklahoma this year. And so fans do ask that question because this was a guy that we heard a lot about in the spring, and he just hasn't been there for us right now in the fall. So you kind of ask those questions, and this is a guy that you would think could potentially, do something on the ground for you this week. So running game is a must. It's got to be there for Oklahoma. You've got to be able to establish it, especially if it's raining. And, a guy like Taylor Tatum's got to hold on to the ball. Now, The second unique challenge that Oklahoma has in this game that I think they need to go in there and address is against Maine, you need to be able to block them well on the offensive line. And I know you're going to play a lot of freshmen and true freshmen on that offensive line, but that's no excuse to allow more than probably 1 or 2 sacks in this game. And I know that sounds crazy to ask from the offensive line that we've seen, because I think even in the Temple game, if I remember correctly, I think they gave up 3 of those sacks. But Oklahoma, you are a bigger, more athletic team than them. A guy like Spencer Brown should be able to come into this game and flat pancake dudes. Like, that is what you are dealing with if you are Oklahoma. That is the kind of game that you are playing. And I'm sorry if you guys see me messing with my hand here. I went to the doctor that day, and he thinks I might have a damaged ligament, and it's kind of hurting right now. So I'm just kind of holding it to kind of keep some pain in my finger from coming up. I don't understand how to explain it, but hopefully getting it fixed soon. So we'll see there. But if you're Oklahoma, blocking has got to be the key this week. I want to see guys like Isaiah Autry-Dent, who Brent Venables has talked about potentially coming into this game, be able to come out, show out, be a guy that I think we can potentially rely some hope on going in the next year. I think a lot of us, including myself, expect Sexton and Taylor to be your starting left and right tackles going into the next year. But I want to see an Isaiah Autry-Dent like cement himself as a 2-deep guy, or a guy that can compete for a starting role next year. I know a lot of fans are potentially wanting to see EPO in this game. I don't know if we see him in this game, or if we don't see him one of the SEC games. Remember, he played against Temple, so he's played 1 game. If you want to retain his red shirt, which I would assume the staff wants to retain his red shirt, he can only play in 3 more games this season. So maybe they do play him this week, and then later on this season, like maybe against LSU or Alabama, where you're having to play a better defensive line, you just kind of sit him so that he doesn't get an opportunity to maybe get hurt or lose that red shirt. Obviously, if you lose a guy like Heath Ozida for the season, I don't really think there's anything you can do if you have to play Heath Ozida, because Oklahoma has not been the healthiest team. But at that point, I think you could slide Troy Everett over to left guard and let Branson Hickman or Joshua Bates take over center. But I think this is a week for a lot of the young guys on the offensive line for us to just kind of see what they have, especially in this talented class. I mean, we've heard so much about Eugene Brooks. If you guys remember, back when the camps at the end of the year, he wasn't really losing reps to those defensive linemen, right? So you would hope to see a guy like Eugene Brooks in the game, maybe a Josh Isosa. It's going to be curious to see how Bill Bedenbaugh works this offensive line. I would also like to see some continuity to start the game. And since we're potentially not going to have Sexton for the rest of the year, I would assume Taylor's probably out at least for the rest of the regular season. I would assume we're going to see a lot of Tarquin and Brown action. So, maybe put Tarquin in at the left side, put Brown in at the right side, and really kind of let those two work, unless Isaiah Autry-Dent just really cements himself and can play that right side really well. I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but the second unique challenge for Oklahoma, you got to be able to block against Maine. You got to be able to show something there. Now, the third and final unique challenge for Oklahoma against Maine is purely the wide receivers, right? So all year we talked about, hey, if you could get 1 or 2 of these guys back, maybe the offense looks a little better, you're probably not going to have them back. I was talking to Jay about it the other day, and it's something I really haven't thought of, but probably a good chance we're not seeing Farouk Tilmizu. And the reason why that is because he played in Temple. And if he wants to come back next year, he has to retain his red shirt. So he can only play in 3 more games. Well, you'd rather have him in those last 3 games of the season than this one. So it makes sense that you wouldn't see him till next week. And then additionally, with Burks kind of having a setback, I don't think you risk him having a setback against a team like Maine. Potentially just sit him this week. And I don't really think you need any of those 5 wide receivers. You shouldn't. Again, you are a more athletic team than Maine. You have better athletes across the board. A guy like J.J. Hester should be able to create separation and beat some of those defenders. I believe Jacob Jordan will get his, and he will show us something better than we've seen all season. Brennan Thompson's going to, I guarantee you, beat his defender 3 or 4 times in this game. Can Jackson Arnold connect with Brennan Thompson? So in the receiving game, you really want to see these guys that have not been able to create separation all season, like a Jaquez Petaway or a Zion Kearney, be able to do that in this game, show you some flashes. Because again, as I said at the beginning of the video, what I think we see in this game from some of these guys is going to define on whether or not some of these guys end up returning to Oklahoma this year. Because like it or not, you know that at the end of every season, this coaching staff likely has a conversation with every single one of these players. And some of these portal entries that you see are not because a player decided to leave the university, but more so because the coaching staff probably said, hey, I think you're going to be better suited off to go find somewhere else to play. We'll help you find somewhere to go. If that's not true, somebody can contact me and let me know. But it would not shock me in the slightest to see coaches encourage transfers because maybe they would have an easier time seeing the field somewhere else, and maybe they're just not going to cut it out for Oklahoma, especially when a guy like Jacob Jordan is going to take a scholarship spot during the offseason. So I look at that. Those are the three unique challenges Oklahoma needs to achieve in this game. Now, I also said at the beginning of the game, Oklahoma's favored by 34.5, and if Oklahoma only scores 35 points in this game, that's bad. Again, something didn't go right? I think you should be able to put in Brendan Zurbrugg and score 34 points in this game, right? If you're Oklahoma, the expectations for you, they're not high, but to score 60 points in this game is not a high expectation, right? Maine is a lower division FCS school. They are not in Division I football. So if you're Oklahoma, you want to see them come out here. You want to see them come out strong. You want to be able to see them play strong all day. And if this offense is able to do it, I don't think the defense is going to let Maine score a single point. I don't think Maine, outside of Oklahoma's own actions, will draw them on the offensive side of the ball across the 50-yard line. The defense for Oklahoma is that good, and I think they're going to show it this week, especially with a lot of secondary and third-string players. I bet we'll see a guy like Danny Okoye, a Michael Patterson. We'll probably see a lot more Reggie Powers, Jaden Hardy, and Michael Boganowski, guys that everybody's really excited for. So for Oklahoma, the biggest things you're watching for this week is on the offensive side of the ball. Can they score? Can they move the ball? Can those wide receivers get separation? Can the offensive line actually create time for Jackson Arnold to sit in the pocket, right? That means they're blocking well, not allowing QB hurries. If they do that in this game, I think you'll feel really good about going into Missouri and Alabama and LSU and potentially knowing like we're not going to get blown out. We potentially found something in those games, especially with Missouri having offensive struggles. That's becoming a very winnable game for Oklahoma, where at the beginning of the season, maybe we didn't look at that as a winnable game. So this now comes to what do I think is going to happen in the game? Well, again, I think Oklahoma is going to score at least 60 points. So I'm going to say the score is 60-0. Oklahoma gets a shutout this season. And I think you primarily do it all within the first 3 quarters. You might get 1 touchdown in the fourth. I do think Oklahoma is going to run the ball a lot. I do think they're going to try to control time of possession in a game where it's raining. You kind of just have to do that. The question is, can an actual wide receiver surpass Deion Burks? Bauer Sharp surpassed Deion Burks in reception yards, but we have not seen a wide receiver surpass Deion Burks. And a guy like that could be Jacob Jordan to do that this week. So if you're Oklahoma, I think they're going to win 60-0 this week. I think Jackson Arnold probably gets to about 1,300 total yards now on the season and probably will end with about 15 touchdowns at the end of this game. So right now he's at 10. I think he'll get 5 more. I don't want to see him throw an interception. I would like to see him play a pretty clean game here. But again, the keys to this game against an FCS opponent, they're not very high. These are very achievable standards for Oklahoma, although they might sound completely asinine to you and I. So if you guys are listening to this on any of the podcast platforms, make sure you give us 5 stars, leave us a review. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you guys next week.